He was invisible. That was his power. In a world screaming for attention, his silence was a weapon. They didn't see him coming. They never do. They look for the man in the $1,000 suit, the one with the booming voice and the practiced smile. They look for the reflection of themselves. And so, they missed him. They missed the soldier. They missed the quiet storm gathering on the horizon. Donald Trump saw a ghost. Or worse, he saw nothing at all. Just another face in the crowd, a placeholder from a country whose name he couldn't be bothered to pronounce. He saw a footnote. He was about to learn that footnotes can bleed. That footnotes can rewrite the entire book. What you are about to witness is not a political disagreement. It is a reckoning. The moment a man built of gold and glass came face to face with a man made of earth and iron. Feel the air in that room. Thick, heavy with the scent of money and ambition. The clink of ice in a billionaire's glass. The low hum of whispered deals that will shape the lives of millions who will never know this room exists. In the center of it all, Trump. A gravitational force. Cameras flash. A constellation of artificial stars worshipping a sun of their own making. And then a shadow falls. Not a literal shadow, but a shift in the energy. The soldier is there. He doesn't speak. He doesn't move. His eyes, steady and old, cut through the noise. They hold the weight of a continent, the memory of dust, the patience of a baobab tree. And for one terrifying second, the emperor feels a chill. He feels the foundation crack. He is looking at a man who wants nothing from him. And in his world, a man who wants nothing is a man who can take everything. The stage was Dubai. It had to be. A city willed into existence from sand and spectacle, the perfect temple for the gods of modern capital. The Global Economic Forum. A gathering of the tribes of power. Men and women who believed they were the architects of destiny, moving nations on a chessboard made of stock tickers and influence maps. They came in private jets that sliced through the desert sky, landing on tarmacs scrubbed clean of any imperfection. They wore watches that cost more than a village's annual income. Their handshakes were contracts, their smiles were calculations. This was their world. A world of predictable orbits, of leverage and return on investment. Everything had a value. Everything had a price tag. And everyone, they believed, was for sale. It was simply a matter of finding their number. Into this grand theater of transactional existence walked two men, two avatars from opposing universes. First, Donald Trump. He wasn't just a man, he was an event. A phenomenon. His presence consumed oxygen. He moved in a whirlwind of aides, security, and a traveling court of supplicants. He was the king of this domain because he had mastered its language. The language of the deal. The art of the threat, veiled and unveiled. The optics of dominance. His internal monologue, a relentless ticker tape of validation and valuation. Who was winning? Who was losing? Who was looking at him? Who was important enough to be seen with? The narrator takes on a slightly different cadence, mimicking the internal, clipped thoughts of Trump. That guy from Germany, weak handshake. Need to remember that. The Saudi prince, smiling, what does he want? The cameras, good angle on me. The best angle. They love me here. Biggest name, by far. That reporter, she's hostile. Ignore her. Freeze her out. And who's that? Over there. The guy in the army clothes. What is this, a costume party? Somebody's charity case. Look at him. Probably from some dirt poor, what's-it-calledistan. He's looking at me. Or through me. Nobody looks through me. He's irrelevant. A zero. Not even worth a tweet. This was the lens through which he saw the world. A hierarchy of net worth. A pyramid of power where he resided at the very peak. His reality was insulated by gold-plated elevators and tinted limousine windows. The world outside that bubble was abstract, a collection of markets to be exploited or ignored. Human dignity? National pride? These were quaint, sentimental notions. Sentiments didn't build towers. Sentiments didn't close deals. Then there was the other man, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. He arrived not on a private jet, but on a commercial flight, his seat no different from any other passengers. He walked through the same terminal, under the same fluorescent lights. He wore no suit, no silk tie. He wore his uniform. Simple, functional, military-issue fatigues. The fabric was not a statement of wealth, but of purpose. It was the same uniform his soldiers wore back home, in the red dust of Burkina Faso. His country's name was a poem, a declaration of intent written by a revolutionary predecessor, the great Thomas Sankara. Burkina Faso, the land of incorruptible people. A name that was both a promise and a burden. Traoré carried that name not on a lapel pin, but in the marrow of his bones. He was young, shockingly so to the geriatric oligarchs who populated the summit. But his eyes were ancient. They held the long, painful memory of his people. The memory of colonial maps drawn by careless hands in faraway European capitals. The memory of mineral wealth being siphoned out of the earth for pennies on the dollar, leaving behind poisoned water and broken dreams. The memory of aid that was not aid at all, but a chain, a leash disguised as a lifeline, ensuring dependency, ensuring the master-servant relationship never truly ended. His internal monologue was not a ticker tape. It was a slow, steady drumbeat. The rhythm of a heart committed to a single, unwavering purpose. The narrator's voice shifts again, becoming calmer, more rhythmic, more profound. Look at them. See how they preen. How they glitter. They think this is power. This palace of glass. They trade paper and call it wealth. They do not see the sun-scorched earth. They do not smell the rains on the Sahel. They do not hear the quiet dignity in the voice of a market woman who asks for a fair price. They see our land as a line on a balance sheet. A deposit box to be cracked open. They offer us their world. A world of debt and imitation. But we do not want their world. We want our own. We are not here to ask. We are not here to beg. We are here to state what is. The era of the locust is over. The harvest will now belong to the farmer. The collision was inevitable. It happened in a wide, marbled corridor between sessions. A river of people flowed, and at its center, the Trump entourage, a boulder parting the waters. On the edge of the current stood Traoré, observing, flanked by a single aide. Trump, mid-anecdote with a laughing European industrialist, caught sight of him. He didn't stop. He didn't need to. He gestured with his chin, a flick of dismissal, a microaggression so subtle it was almost invisible. The gesture said everything. Look at this guy. Out of his league. He said something to the industrialist, who chuckled, a loyal courtier laughing at the king's joke. The joke was Traoré. His uniform. His poverty. His presumed insignificance. The world expected Traoré to flinch. To look away. To show deference or perhaps anger. To react. Because a reaction would mean he was playing the game. It would validate the power dynamic. He did none of those things. He simply held his ground. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. His gaze, calm and direct, met Trump's. It wasn't a challenge. It wasn't a threat. It was something far more unnerving. It was an act of seeing. He saw the man, not the brand. He saw the bluster, the insecurity, the desperate need for validation that fueled the golden engine. And in that silent 2-second exchange, a universe of meaning passed. Trump looked away first. It was a small thing. A nothing. But the industrialist's smile faltered. An aide shifted his weight. The energy field around Trump had been pierced. A pinprick, but a definite one. He felt it. That cold sliver of confusion. Why didn't the man react? Why wasn't he intimidated? Who the hell was he? The question would hang in the air for the rest of the day, a discordant note in the symphony of self-congratulation. The game board had been subtly, almost imperceptibly, altered. And the main event hadn't even begun. What makes a man powerful? His voice? His wealth? The fear he inspires? The story of this summit is a test of that very question. And if you believe that true strength often whispers instead of shouts, then you're in the right place. But don't just watch this story unfold. Be a part of it. Hit that subscribe button right now. Don't miss the moment the whisper becomes a roar. Join us and let's discover the answer together. The main plenary hall was a cathedral of power. A vast, acoustically perfect dome designed to make any speaker feel like a titan. Tiered seating curved around a central stage, Every seat plush, equipped with a water bottle and a translation headset. The lighting was soft, expensive, designed to flatter. Donald Trump owned that stage. He had just concluded his keynote address. It was a masterclass in the Trumpian arts. A mix of chest-thumping nationalism, slick salesmanship, and folksy anecdotes that painted a picture of a world made simple, a world of winners and losers, of good deals and bad deals. We're making America stronger than ever before, and a strong America is good for the world, he boomed, his voice echoing through the hall. We want partners, not dependents. We want trade, not aid. We'll do business with anyone who wants to do business with us, but it's gotta be a fair deal. A deal that's good for our workers, our companies, our people. We're not the world's piggy bank anymore. The applause was loud, a mix of genuine enthusiasm from his ideological allies and polite, obligatory clapping from everyone else. He bathed in it, turning from side to side, giving his signature thumbs up. He had set the tone. The narrative of the day was clear. The world runs on American terms. Get on board or get left behind. He returned to his front row seat, the seat of honor. He was satisfied. He dominated the news cycle. He was the story. The moderator, a polished journalist from a major news network, stepped to the lectern. Thank you, Mr. Trump. A powerful message. Our next speaker represents a voice we are eager to hear from, a leader steering his nation through a time of significant transition. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of Burkina Faso, His Excellency Captain Ibrahim Traoré. A ripple of, what was it? Not excitement. More like a collective, silent sigh. A settling. This was the part of the program where you checked your emails. The obligatory slot for the developing world. The come down after the main event. Phones emerged from pockets. A low murmur spread through the hall. Traoré walked from the side of the stage. He didn't stride. He didn't swagger. He walked with a steady, deliberate pace. The only sound was the soft tread of his military boots on the polished floor. He reached the lectern, a simple wooden podium that seemed impossibly large and ornate for his slender frame. He looked out at the audience. The sea of expensive suits, of faces either bored, distracted, or politely indifferent. He saw the glowing screens of their phones. He didn't speak. He adjusted the microphone, a small, precise movement. He reached down for the glass of water provided. He held it. He looked at it. Then he looked back at the audience, his eyes sweeping across the room. The silence began to stretch. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. It became uncomfortable. The murmuring stopped. The phones were slowly lowered. One by one, heads came up. What was he doing? Was there a problem with the teleprompter? But there was no teleprompter. Just a few folded pieces of paper in his hand. 15 seconds. The silence was no longer empty. It was full. It was charged. He had, without saying a single word, taken control of the room. He had forced them to stop their own internal monologues and focus on his. He had made his silence louder than Trump's applause. And then he spoke. His voice was not loud. It was calm, measured, with the soft cadence of his French-accented English. It carried no trace of anger or supplication. It carried the simple, unbreakable weight of truth. My name is Ibrahim Traoré. I am a captain in the army of my people. And I am the temporary leader of a nation called Burkina Faso. It means, the land of incorruptible people. He paused. He let the name hang in the air of this room, a place where everything, it was assumed, had its price. I did not come here today to ask for anything. My country is not poor. Do not call us a poor country. My country is rich. The land beneath our feet is heavy with gold. It is rich with manganese, with zinc, with copper. Our sun is generous. Our people are resilient. So why, you ask, do we appear on your lists of the world's most impoverished nations? Another pause. He scanned their faces. He was not accusing. He was teaching. We are not poor. We are being impoverished. There is a difference. For decades, we have been told to follow a certain model of development. A model designed in rooms just like this one. We have been told to take out loans that feed a cycle of debt from which we can never escape. We have been told to welcome foreign companies to extract our resources in exchange for a fraction of their true value. They come with their big machines, they dig up our gold, they fly it away to refineries in your countries, and they sell it on your markets. They leave us with holes in the ground and a small check that is called royalties. He held up a hand. This is not an accusation. It is an observation. It is a system. A system that has been very profitable, for some. A system that has perpetuated the idea that we need you. That without your expertise, without your capital, without your aid, we are nothing. He leaned slightly closer to the microphone. His voice dropped, becoming more intimate, more intense. The lie is over. A jolt went through the room. It was an electric shock. No one had ever spoken like this here. Not in this way. Not with this quiet, unshakable authority. In the front row, Donald Trump, who had been looking smugly at his phone, looked up. His brow furrowed. The dismissive smirk was gone, replaced by a flicker of annoyance, then confusion. Traoré continued, his rhythm steady, hypnotic. We are told that we need your help to fight the terrorists who plague our region. But we must ask, where do these terrorists get their weapons? They are not manufactured in the villages of Burkina Faso. They arrive, somehow, across borders, funded by interests that do not wish to see a stable, self-sufficient Sahel. They sow chaos, and then you offer us military assistance, which comes with bases, with conditions, with a loss of our own sovereignty. It is a sickness for which you sell a cure that deepens the disease. They say we are hungry. Yes, there is hunger. But we have fertile land. Why are we importing wheat and rice when we can grow our own food? Because for generations, our agricultural system was re-engineered to produce cash crops for your markets. Cotton, cocoa, things we cannot eat. We were integrated into a global economy as the eternal producer of raw materials, never the master of our own destiny. He picked up one of his folded pages. He didn't read from it. He just held it. Today, I am not here to present a new request for a loan. I am not here to complain. I am here to announce a new chapter. For Burkina Faso, and we hope, for all of Africa. As of this day, the era of passive partnership is over. We will no longer simply export our raw gold. We are building our own refinery. The gold of Burkina Faso will be refined on the soil of Burkina Faso. Its full value will now contribute to the development of Burkina Faso. A gasp was audible from somewhere in the hall. This was heresy. This was a direct challenge to the multinational mining corporations, to the banks, to the entire financial architecture they all represented. We will renegotiate every single mining contract. They will be rewritten to serve the interests of our people first. Not exclusively, but first. We believe in partnership. But partnership is a street with two directions. It is not a one-way path of extraction. We will diversify our agriculture to achieve food self-sufficiency within 5 years. We would rather eat what we grow and be free than eat what you import and be slaves to your markets. We will educate our children not to be good employees for foreign companies, but to be the creators of our own industries. Now he looked directly, it seemed, at the front row. Not just at Trump, but at the entire system he embodied. We do not reject the world. We wish to enter it. But we will enter it standing up, not on our knees. We will come to the table as equals, not as beggars. We do not want your aid, which buys our silence and our submission. We want fair trade. We do not want your charity. We want your respect. He paused, and the silence in the room was absolute. It was a vacuum. Every single person was frozen, listening. They were hearing the unthinkable. A declaration of independence. Not from a colonial power of the 19th century, but from the neo-colonial power of the 21st. The power of debt, of dependency, of the very economic model this forum was built to celebrate. Some of you will call this radical. Some will call it dangerous. You will say we are isolating ourselves. You will predict our failure. You have written this story many times before for any leader who dared to choose this path. But you forget something. You forget the will of a people who have decided that the dignity of their ancestors and the future of their children are not for sale. My uniform, he said, gesturing to his own chest, is not a costume. It is a reminder that a nation's sovereignty is defended, first, by its own sons and daughters. It is a reminder that our greatest resource is not the gold under our feet, but the courage in our hearts. He placed his paper back on the lectern. He had finished. He hadn't raised his voice once. He hadn't used a single insult. He hadn't named a single enemy. He had simply, calmly, and methodically taken apart their entire world. He looked out at them one last time. We are the land of incorruptible people. We invite you to get to know us. Thank you. He turned and walked off the stage with the same steady pace with which he had arrived. For a full 10 seconds, there was no sound. No applause. Just a stunned, collective paralysis. The system had short-circuited. Then, from the back, a single person began to clap. Then another. It wasn't the thunderous, obligatory applause that Trump had received. It was hesitant, scattered, but it was real. It grew, not into a roar, but into a wave of genuine, if bewildered, acknowledgement. It came mostly from the delegations from Africa, from Latin America, from parts of Asia. It was the applause of the unseen, the unheard, who had just been given a voice. The camera of the mind, the narrator's eye, now zooms in. Past the clapping delegates, past the stunned journalists, to the front row. To one man, Donald Trump was not clapping. He sat perfectly still. His face was a mask of concrete. The confident smirk, the annoyed frown, the performative anger, all gone. In their place was something stark and unfamiliar. A void. He was staring at the empty lectern as if the ghost of Traoré was still standing there. This was the nightmare. It wasn't a physical threat. It wasn't a political rival shouting insults that he could twist and weaponize. It wasn't a bad poll number or a negative headline. It was something far worse, something that struck at the very core of his identity. He had just witnessed a man who could not be processed by his operating system. Trump's world was a simple binary. You were either a winner or a loser, a predator or prey, a master or a servant. You either had a price, or you were setting the price. He spent his entire life learning the rules of this game, and he had won. He had built an empire on that understanding. And this captain, this nobody from nowhere, had just walked onto the stage and refused to play. He hadn't just flipped the chessboard. He had declared that chess was a stupid game and that he would be playing his own, by his own rules, on his own terms. Trump's weapons were useless here. How do you bully a man who doesn't seek your approval? How do you buy a man who defines wealth as something you can't print? How do you threaten a man who is willing to eat what he grows and call it freedom? How do you dominate a man whose power comes from his own people's self-respect? He couldn't tweet about this. What would he say? The very quiet man from Burkina Faso gave a speech that I found philosophically troubling. It was absurd. He was powerless. He, Donald J. Trump, the ultimate master of the deal, of the spectacle, of power as he understood it, had been rendered utterly, totally impotent. He had been played. Not in a clever negotiation. Not in a backroom deal. He had been played on a global stage by being shown to be irrelevant to the other man's reality. Traoré's speech was a mirror, and in it, Trump saw not a powerful leader, but an emperor with no clothes, standing in a room where currency was suddenly worthless. The foundation didn't just crack. It shattered. The low hum of the room returned, but it was different now. It was charged with a new energy. A new question. The conversations were no longer about Trump's speech. They were about the soldier. Who was he? What did this mean? The narrative had been stolen from the king, not by a rival king, but by a philosopher in fatigues. Did you feel that? The shift in the air? That is the sound of a paradigm breaking. It's the feeling you get when one person's courage changes the entire conversation. This is more than just a story. It's a lesson in power, dignity, and the quiet strength that moves the world. If that idea resonates deep within you, if you are tired of the noise and hungry for substance, then your journey doesn't have to end here. Join our community of thinkers. Click the link below. Don't just watch the change. Be part of the conversation. This is an invitation to go deeper, to explore more stories that challenge the world as it is. Don't let it pass you by. The hours that followed Traoré's speech were a study in quiet chaos. The polished veneer of the summit had been scuffed. The carefully curated script had been set on fire. The hallways and lounges, once filled with predictable talk of market trends and geopolitical alliances, now buzzed with a single name, Traoré. He wasn't seen. He didn't hold a press conference. He didn't grant interviews to the suddenly desperate media scrum. He and his small delegation remained in their quarters. This absence only amplified his presence. He had thrown a stone into the placid lake of global consensus, and now he was letting the ripples speak for him. The architects of the old world were bewildered. You could see it on their faces. The heads of multinational corporations huddled with their political analysts, their expressions grim. What did this mean for their assets? For their quarterly projections? Their world was built on predictability, on risk assessment. Traoré was a variable they had no algorithm for. He was a black swan event in a simple soldier's uniform. A veteran European diplomat, a man whose entire career was built on the soft power of negotiation and compromise, was overheard speaking into his phone in hushed, urgent tones. No, you don't understand. He wasn't posturing. There was no negotiation in his voice. He was simply informing us of a new reality. It was like a physicist calmly stating that the law of gravity had been amended. What are we supposed to do? Argue with it? Meanwhile, a different kind of energy was building elsewhere. In the corners of the Great Hall, in the less opulent cafes of the convention center, a new alliance was being forged. The delegates from the global south, the ones who were usually relegated to the margins, were finding each other. A minister from a Caribbean nation, a diplomat from Southeast Asia, an agricultural official from a neighboring West African country. They spoke in excited, animated whispers. Did you hear him? He said what we have all been thinking. The refinery, can you imagine? If we could all do that. He didn't ask for permission. That was the key. He never asked. They looked at each other with a new light in their eyes. A spark of possibility. For decades, they had been told their role was to be the supplicant, the student, the grateful recipient of largesse. Traoré had provided them with a new vocabulary. The vocabulary of sovereignty. He had reminded them that they were the owners of their own homes, and they had the right to set the rules for any guest who entered. The most profound impact, however, was the one that was entirely internal, taking place inside the fortress of Donald Trump's mind. He had left the plenary hall abruptly. He skipped the afternoon sessions. He sat in his penthouse suite, a gilded cage overlooking a city of impossible towers. He was rage-watching the news reports on a giant screen. But the rage was impotent. The usual release valve of a furious tweet or a scathing public statement was denied to him. How could he attack Traoré? On what grounds? For loving his country too much? For wanting his people to be self-sufficient? Any attack would make him look like a bully, or worse, like the very neo-colonial figure Traoré had so skillfully painted without ever using the name. He was trapped. Checkmated. His aides tried to manage him. Sir, we can release a statement emphasizing your America First policy aligns with his Burkina Faso First message. We can frame it as a win. Trump threw a hand at the screen. Are you stupid? He wasn't talking about being first. He was talking about changing the whole damn game. He said we're the problem. He said it without saying it. He called us thieves in front of the whole world. The aide had no response. The boss was right. Traoré's speech was a masterpiece of implication. He had held up a mirror, and Trump, along with every other powerful figure in that room, saw a reflection they could not stomach. Trump paced the room, the plush carpet silencing his footsteps. It was the silence that was getting to him. The quiet dignity of his new, unexpected adversary. He was a creature of noise. He understood shouting matches, insults, public feuds. That was a language he could speak. He could crush an opponent in the mud of a media war. But how do you fight a man who stands on a mountain of principle? A man whose silence is more powerful than your roar? His nightmare wasn't about losing money or an election. It was deeper. It was the terror of obsolescence. The fear that the world he had mastered was being replaced by one whose rules he did not understand. A world where dignity was worth more than dollars. Where self-respect couldn't be leveraged. where a nation's soul couldn't be shorted on the stock market. He was an analog titan in a new digital age of sovereignty. And he was terrified. He felt old, irrelevant. And for Donald Trump, there was no worse feeling in the universe. The summit concluded the next day. The final communiqué was a bland, forgettable document full of the usual platitudes about cooperation and sustainable growth. It was meaningless. The real communiqué had been delivered from the podium by a soldier president. As delegations departed, a final, symbolic scene played out on the tarmac. Donald Trump's massive private jet, his name emblazoned on the side in giant gold letters, was being prepared for takeoff. It was a spectacle of power, a flying monument to ego. A short distance away, the delegation from Burkina Faso was boarding a regular commercial flight. There was no fanfare, no red carpet. Captain Traoré walked up the mobile staircase with the other passengers. But just before he entered the plane, he stopped. He turned and looked back at the gleaming skyline of Dubai. He didn't look at Trump's jet. He didn't seem to notice it. He was looking at the horizon, towards home. His expression was calm, unreadable, but resolute. A man who knew the journey ahead would be difficult. He knew the system he had challenged would fight back, with sanctions, with propaganda, with destabilization. He knew the forces he had provoked would not remain idle. But he also knew he was not alone. He carried the hope of his people, and now, the hope of millions more around the world who had heard his message. The message that you can stand up, that you can say no, that your land, your future, and your dignity are yours. The narrator's voice becomes reflective, a calm and powerful summary of the moral core. What is true power? The story of these two men at this summit forces us to ask the question: is it the power to build the tallest building? To amass the greatest fortune? To command the world's attention with a single word? For a long time, we have been taught to believe so. We have been shown a version of success that is loud, shiny, and expensive. Donald Trump is the perfect symbol of that power. It is the power of the transaction, the power of dominance. It is loud. It is demanding. And it is ultimately hollow, because it relies on the consent and fear of others. It requires an audience. It needs validation. When it is met with something it cannot buy or intimidate, it collapses. Captain Ibrahim Traoré revealed a different kind of power, a power that is not built but cultivated. It is the power of the principle, the power of self-respect. It is quiet. It is patient. And it is rooted in something real: the land, the people, the history, the soul. It does not need an audience, only a conscience. It does not seek validation from the outside, because it is validated from within. Trump's worst nightmare was not the man himself. It was the idea the man represented, that you could be powerful and free by simply refusing to participate in a corrupt game. That you could create your own value system. That you could find wealth in sovereignty and strength in simplicity. The soldier didn't defeat the emperor in a fight. He made the emperor's fight irrelevant. He showed the world that the emperor's throne was just a gilded chair, and his crown was just a hat. He didn't tear down the master's house. He walked out the front door and began building his own, with his own tools, on his own land. This story is not just about a summit in Dubai. It's about a choice. A choice we all face in our own lives. Do we accept the definitions of success and power that are handed to us? Do we play the game by the rules we are given, even when we know those rules are rigged? Or do we find the courage to define our own worth? To cultivate our own garden? To stand up, quietly but firmly, and declare our own independence? The world is full of noise. It tells you who to be, what to want, what to fear. The quietest voice is often your own. Listen to it. Trust it. For in that quiet space lies the seed of your own incorruptible land. This journey of discovery doesn't end when this video fades to black. The feeling you have right now, that sense of inspiration, that questioning of everything you thought you knew, is valuable. Don't let it go. You've seen how one voice can change the world. Now it's time to empower yours. By subscribing, you do more than just get more content. You join a movement, a community dedicated to these powerful, world-changing ideas. If you're ready to stop being a spectator and start being a part of the solution, then this is your moment. Click that subscribe button and then click the link to unlock our exclusive library of stories about the quiet rebels and silent revolutionaries who are shaping our future. Don't let the algorithm decide what you see next. You decide. Now, your future self will thank you.